And I'll turn the mic over to you. Kel Lash, this mic is all yours.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to anyone listening. Happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day to those in the US. I like to rename this day Interdependence Day because we are not independent beings living on an island by ourselves. We rely on each other and we join with each other all the time. We have our mighty companions everywhere, whether they're in form or in spirit, whether they're in the physical bodies or angelic bodies. And we practice interdependence all the time. So I'm celebrating that today and the connections that I have with everyone because we are all one. So that's pretty interdependent, I think. So yeah, we join together for our healing and I'm grateful for that. So today, I think I'm just going to read out of the course again and just do what's guided here to read. Okay. So I opened up to, this is chapter 30, The New Beginning. And this is section 6, and it's called The Justification for Forgiveness. So I'll just start reading there. There's a phrase above here in section 5 that's popping out of me, so I'll read that first. There never was a time an idol brought you anything except the gift of guilt. No one was bought except at cost of pain, nor was it ever paid by you alone. Be merciful unto your brother then, and do not choose an idol thoughtlessly, remembering that he will pay the cost as well as you, for he will be delayed when you look back, and you will not perceive whose loving hand you hold. Look forward then in confidence, walk with a happy heart that beats in hope and does not pound in fear. The will of God forever lies in those whose hands are joined until they joined. Let me read that again. The will of God forever lies in those whose hands are joined. Until they joined, they thought he was their enemy. But when they joined and shared a purpose, they were free to learn their will is one. And thus the will of God must reach to their awareness, nor can they forget for long that it is but their own. I like this. I like look forward then in confidence, walk with a happy heart that beats in hope and does not pound in fear. And I like this idea of joining hands with God, joining hands with each other. I think this is the interdependence that I was just speaking about. So this is our celebration today. This is our work, perhaps today, to redefine this idea of independence, everybody having to be free on their own. I mean, that's not really freedom, is it? I mean, there's freedom in the fact that we have everything within ourselves, but we're not alone. We are interdependent with God. Yeah, and we join hands with God, and we join hands with our brothers and sisters in order to work through these challenges that we face within ourselves, these challenges that come up in relationships with other people, challenges that come up out in the world that we live among the chaos. So we need to join. Yeah, so let's join our hands with God today. This is now section 6, the justification for forgiveness. Anger is never justified. Attack has no foundation. It is here escape from fear begins and will be made complete. Here is the real world, given in exchange for dreams of terror. For it is on this forgiveness rests and is but natural. You are not asked to offer pardon where attack is due and would be justified. For that would mean that you forgive a sin by overlooking what is really there. This is not pardon, for it would assume that by responding in a way which is not justified, your pardon will become the answer to attack that has been made. And thus is pardon inappropriate by being granted where it is not due. Pardon is always justified. So the next paragraph is going on to talk about pardon is always justified. I want to go back to the beginning of this paragraph. Anger is never justified. So that's a pretty strong statement to read. So I want to speak about that because we experience anger, and anger, I think that line, just that simple statement, anger is never justified, could easily be misinterpreted because anger is not justified ever, meaning there's no just reason to ever be angry, right? That's essentially what Jesus is saying. But there's more to it than that, because we experience anger and we are innocent. So everything we experience is okay. We're still innocent. We're still guiltless if we experience anger. So anger, if I feel angry about something, that's okay. So I think there's different ways to interpret that word justified. Because if I feel angry about something, then that's okay. I have to honor my anger. I feel angry for a reason. Okay, we're never upset for the reason we think, yes. But I'm perceiving that there's a reason for it. Usually, if I'm angry, I usually will know the reason that I think it is. So we have to look at that. We have to look at the anger. We don't have to necessarily figure out the reason why, because we really don't know. And we're never upset for the reason we think, but we can't just say, oh, my anger is not justified, and just bypass it and then expect it or hope that it goes away. That's not how we work with emotions. So the therapist and the coach in me wants to really unpack this like I often do when I read, because it's true. Anger is never justified. But when we feel angry, that's okay. We can still practice loving kindness and gentleness and compassion with ourselves for our experience of anger. So there's something showing up in our world that we perceive being the cause of that anger. And it could be a very, very serious thing, or it could be a very tiny thing. It could be somebody cutting us off a little bit on the road in the car, or it could be people getting killed for being Black. I mean, it could be anywhere in between those two scenarios. It could be, any intensity of something that's causing my anger. So that's a lived experience. So I feel angry because I'm being hurt, or I see my brother and sister being hurt, being harmed. That is, yes, an illusion, but we have to look at our anger and acknowledge it and validate it, and look at the meaning we made that got us to the point where we felt that anger. We made a meaning that anger is justified. So then that could lead to holding on to that anger building up, because we're not looking at it, we're not forgiving it within ourselves. We're not forgiving the meaning we made of the situation, of the pain. We're not forgiving the meaning we made of it. So we made a meaning that I have to be angry about this, and I don't get to be happy about this and heal from this. This is an unfair situation. So this makes me angry. This is what we say. But we have to forgive the meaning we made of it and say, wait a minute, does this have to really make me angry? Okay, so it's never justified to be treated unfairly, right? That kind of thing comes out of anger, comes out of fear. Anger is just a product of fear. So underneath any emotion is fear, and underneath any unpleasant emotion is fear. So anything beneath any non-loving emotion is fear. So we have to forgive the meaning we made of it, which is that thing that happened is now the source of my anger. It's making me angry. And now I have to be angry, and I don't know how to be happy, and I can't be happy, because why could I be happy when this thing happened to me or someone else, or this thing is going on around me? So this is the meaning we made. Our ego says, I have to be angry about this. That's it. I'm done. The ego's like, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm angry. That's the end. But it's not the end, because then I continue to feel angry. I continue to build resentments. I continue to build grievances, and that turns into further attacks on my brothers and sisters, further attacks on myself, for the experience I've had from that, right? The meaning I made of that being really bad, and the source of my dis-ease, my pain. And then I'm angrier and angrier, or then I go into grief, or then I go into a different experience. And that, where does it turn into love? So this is where the forgiveness work is. Maybe he'll talk more about this. So I'll stop rambling and keep going here. Pardon is always justified. It has a sure foundation. You do not forgive the unforgivable, nor overlook a real attack that calls for punishment. Salvation does not lie in being asked to make unnatural responses which are inappropriate to what is real. Instead, it merely asks that you respond appropriately to what is not real, by not perceiving what has not occurred. If pardon were unjustified, you would be asked to sacrifice your rights when you return forgiveness for attack. But you are merely asked to see forgiveness as the natural reaction to distress that rests on error and thus calls for help. Forgiveness is the only sane response. It keeps your rights from being sacrificed. Okay, so this is getting into, I think, what I was touching on. So if pardon were unjustified, you would be asked to sacrifice your rights when you return forgiveness for attack. But you are merely asked to see forgiveness as the natural reaction to distress that rests on error and thus calls for help. So that's it. You're asked to see forgiveness as the natural reaction to distress that rests on error. So I made an error in my mind, in my thinking, and I experienced distress. And then that's the call for help. That's the signal. I need help. Please, God, help me see this differently. I'm in distress. I need help. This is my interdependence. So I am dependent on you, God, to help me with this. And forgiveness is the natural reaction to this. So there's an error. I ask for help, and then there's forgiveness. What a beautiful process. What if we were all doing that process every time we experience distress? Oh my gosh. Imagine the forgiveness that would be occurring among us if we were doing this all the time. So this is a all day process that we can choose to engage in if we want to, all day, every day, or we can choose not to. And if we don't all day, the next day we can choose to do it one time. We just need to ask for help. We need to recognize what's my reaction in my body, in my mind, what's my belief, what's the meaning I made of this, what's my emotion, where do I feel that in my body, and can I call for help? Can I pick up the phone, call the Holy Spirit in, and ask for help? Can I call my guides in, whoever helps me? Can I call a person? Maybe it's a human being who has that deep guidance. Maybe it's someone I care about in my life. I can call for help if maybe I'm struggling with hearing God, or calling on God for help, or struggling with that block there. So we can call for help in all sorts of ways. So we have to be willing to look at that as interdependence, I think, on God, with God. This is a holy relationship I have with God. So God's going to be there whether I know he's there or not. Every time. He doesn't leave. He never leaves, ever. He's always there. So he's always there for us to call on for help. Okay, I'll keep going. This understanding is the only change that lets the real world rise to take the place of dreams of terror. Fear cannot arise unless attack is justified. And if it had a real foundation, pardon would have none. The real world is achieved when you perceive the basis of forgiveness is quite real and fully justified. Yeah. While you regard it as a gift unwarranted, it must uphold the guilt you would forgive. Unjustified forgiveness is attack, and this is all the world can ever give. It pardons sinners sometimes, but remains aware that they have sinned. And so they do not merit the forgiveness that it gives. So what stood out to me here is fear cannot arise unless attack is justified. So that is absolutely true. If the attack is justified, fear has to be there, because why would I attack if I was not in fear? I would have no reason in my mind to attack myself or anyone else ever if I didn't have fear. There would be nothing to attack because I wouldn't be in fear. I would be in love. I would be in the state of love for whatever is going on around me, even if I was being attacked. And the real world is achieved when you perceive the basis of forgiveness is quite real and fully justified. So all of a sudden, our fear becomes so powerful that we perceive the real world. Okay, let me reinterpret that. The real world is achieved when you perceive the basis of forgiveness is quite real and fully justified. So the real world, meaning not the illusion, is achieved when you perceive the basis of forgiveness is quite real. So forgiveness, when forgiveness is there, we all of a sudden can see. We can see that this is the illusion, and we can see what's really going on. While you regard it as a gift unwarranted, it must uphold the guilt you would forgive. Unjustified forgiveness is attack. And this is all the world can ever give. It pardons sinners sometimes, but remains aware that they have sinned. And so they do not merit the forgiveness that it gives. So this is very true. Like when we think we forgave someone, or like say somebody gets out of jail on probation, the justice system is essentially saying, you're pardoned, you're free, we forgive you, you get to start again and be a member of society again, we trust you to do that, yet you're still on probation, so you have to check in with us, the world isn't going to support you in this because you're going to be very unemployable, it's going to be hard for you to find housing, you're a felon, that's on your record forever, so like you're forgiven, but not really, because now you're going to have a really, really hard life, and in this system that really isn't going to help you out that well. So, we think we're forgiving people, but we're not fully forgiving. So this is how it shows up. This is the false forgiveness which the world employs to keep the sense of sin alive. And recognizing God is just, it seems impossible his pardon could be real. Thus is the fear of God the sure result of seeing pardon as unmerited. No one who sees himself as guilty can avoid the fear of God, but he is saved from this dilemma if he can forgive. The mind must think of its creator as it looks upon itself. If you can see your brother merits pardon, you have learned forgiveness is your right as much as his. Nor will you think that God intends for you a fearful judgment that your brother does not merit, for it is the truth that you can merit neither more nor less than he. Yeah. So I really liked the part in here where he says, no one who sees himself as guilty can avoid the fear of God. So if I see myself as guilty, that means whether I like it or not, or whether I'm aware or conscious of it or not, that means that I have a fear of God. If I see myself as guilty, that means that I believe God sees me as guilty as well because I'm dependent on God. So, yeah, so that's like really, that's really big, I think. If anytime I see myself as guilty, could I be willing to acknowledge that that's me actually seeing God blaming me and thinking I'm guilty? And if I make that connection right now, I don't believe that God thinks I'm guilty. God is only love. God is love. So that doesn't line up. That doesn't match. I really do not. I really know that God knows that I am not guilty ever. So can I bring that back into myself and be willing to live as if that is true and forgive myself for what was already forgiven, because there was nothing to forgive in God's mind. But us in our bodies and human bodies with our egos have to get a little bit convoluted with forgiveness, because we have to perceive something needs to be forgiven in order to actually forgive ourselves or forgive others. So it's this convoluted process that results in feeling like I'm forgiven by God, but God never needed to forgive me for anything. So, it's a little bit convoluted, but if that's how we have to get there as humans, then that's okay. If we can get, there's many paths to getting there. So if that's how we get there, then great. Forgiveness, recognized as merited, will heal. It gives the miracle its strength to overlook illusions. This is how you learn that you must be forgiven too. There can be no appearance that cannot be overlooked. For if there were, it would be necessary first there be some sin that stands beyond forgiveness. There would be an error that is more than a mistake, a special form of error that remains unchangeable, eternal, and beyond correction or escape. There would be one mistake that had the power to undo creation and to make a world that could replace it and destroy the will of God. Only if this were possible could there be some appearances that could withstand the miracle and not be healed by it. Ooh. So, wow. So what strikes me here is there would be an error that is more than a mistake, a special form of error that remains unchangeable, eternal, and beyond correction or escape. There would be one mistake that had the power to undo creation and to make a world that could replace it and destroy the will of God. Oh, wow. That's a really powerful meaning that my one little mistake turned into. So, wow. Yeah. There would be one mistake that had the power to undo creation and to make a world that could replace it and destroy the will of God. So if I make one mistake and I interpret that to mean that's going to undo all of creation and destroy the will of God, which is I am forgiven, I am innocent, I am guiltless. But my one mistake made it clear to me all of a sudden that I am none of those things, that I am a sinner, I'm guilty, I'm a bad person. So all of a sudden this little meaningless bad mistake I made. So say I was distracted driving in my car and I look at my phone, and we all do this. I actually, several years ago, I actually got into a car accident because I was looking at my phone. This was a huge forgiveness lesson for me. But yeah, maybe I don't need to tell that whole story now, but it certainly taught me to not look at my phone while driving. Um, but yeah, the angels were with me there. My grandparents who actually died in a car crash were there with me. I was immediately aware of that as soon as it happened, the moment after it happened. But anyway, where was I going with that? Okay, so if I make the error of looking at my phone and then I cut someone off, maybe we're not even talking about accidents here. So I looking at my phone while driving and I cut someone off on the road. And I almost hit them. So they might get scared, they might get angry, probably get both. They'll be frustrated, irritated. What happens within me? Okay, so I immediately go into guilt. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost just caused an accident. I almost hurt them. This innocent person I almost hurt. I almost hurt myself with this stupid mistake. I didn't really need to look at my phone and change the music or read that text, but I did. So I feel terrible about this now. I feel so guilty. So this is the immediate reaction we have to anything. It's so small. Even something smaller than that example. I can't really think of something smaller than that right now, but we know there's things that are perceived much smaller than that to other people. Yet so I might decide to make a meaning of this, that I actually am now a bad person because I made that mistake in that moment. So now all of a sudden my choice, my error, my bad choice in that moment becomes my entire identity. My entire identity is now, I am a bad person because I made this mistake. So I don't get to be innocent anymore. I'm a bad person. So now we have destroyed the will of God, is what Jesus is telling us. that interpretation has now destroyed the will of God for myself. So where is God's love in that? I have put up a total wall to the forgiveness in that. So I have to be willing to forgive myself. I would be to be willing to, at some point, decide, whoa, this is not working for me. I now believe I'm a bad person. So all the things I do every day for the rest of my life, even things that like aren't even mistakes, like even like, say I just decide to like do nothing all day and sit on the couch. I all of a sudden make a meaning of that I'm like a bad, worthless person because I didn't do anything all day to help anyone, to help myself. Like, even if I do nothing, I still believe I'm a bad person. Even when I do good things, I hear this from my clients a lot. Even if I have a belief, so when they have beliefs that they're bad people, this turns into them actually doing good things and still believing they're bad people. So they might understand, they might acknowledge that the things they do are good things, but that doesn't equate to them being good people. They still believe that they're bad, even though they often they try very, very, very hard to be good people. They try so hard and they feel like they're failing all the time because they have a belief, a core belief that they're a bad person. So they could do all the good things in the world for a year straight and still believe they're a bad person. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because the one thing they did means everything about them now. So this is a really serious core belief that we have that we need to be willing to look at. Is that really true? Is that how God sees me? Hell no, that's how God sees you. So yeah, we have to deal with that. We have to deal with that. That's not who we are. Okay. There is no sure proof idolatry. There is no surer proof idolatry is what you wish than a belief there are some forms of sickness and of joylessness forgiveness cannot heal. This means that you prefer to keep some idols and are not prepared as yet to let all idols go. And thus you think that some appearances are real and not appearances at all. But be not deceived about the meaning of a fixed belief that some appearances are harder to look past than others are. It always means you think forgiveness must be limited. Excuse me. And you have set a goal of partial pardon and a limited escape from guilt for you. What can this be except a false forgiveness of yourself and everyone who seems apart from you? So, yeah, he's talking again about the false idols. So we put some powerful meaning into false idols. So false idols can be anything, people, things, ideas, events. They can be, spiritual teacher that we idolize too much. So then if we get hurt, we feel invalidated by them. We feel traumatized. They can be like a relationship person we're in a romantic relationship with. We have this idea of this person. It's going to make me happy, make me complete. And so then when they end the relationship or when they do something hurtful, I'm not happy anymore. I don't get to be happy. So that's a false idol. We have false idols in money, in career, in recognition in the world, being seen and recognized. Yeah, lots of false idols going on. Be not deceived, he says, be not deceived about the meaning of a fixed belief that some appearances are harder to look past than others are. Yeah. It must be true the miracle can heal all forms of sickness, or it cannot heal. So it's all or nothing. Its purpose cannot be to judge which forms are real and which appearances are true. Yeah. If one appearance must remain apart from healing, one illusion must be part of truth. And you could not escape all guilt, but only some of it. You must forgive God's Son entirely, or you will keep an image of yourself that is not whole, and will remain afraid to look within and find escape from every idol there. Salvation rests on faith. There cannot be some forms of guilt that you cannot forgive. Salvation rests on faith. There cannot be some forms of guilt you cannot forgive. And so there cannot be appearances that have replaced the truth about God's Son. So he's saying the same thing in each sentence here. This is super important. So it must be true. The miracle can heal all forms of sickness, or it cannot heal. So this is an all or nothing situation. Either I'm never guilty, or I'm always guilty. So I can't pick and choose. I can't say I'm a good person one day and I'm a bad person the next day, or I'm worthy one day and I'm worthless the next day. that doesn't make any sense. Those are all beliefs that I get to be good one day and bad the next day. That is a belief system in my mind. That is a belief system operating and interpreting everything that goes on around me, everything I do, everything that's done to me and said to me operates on a belief system that is not true, that there's no truth in that. So you cannot escape all guilt, and you could not escape all guilt, but only some of it, if this is a pick and choose situation. So which one do we want to believe and practice believing is true? Because in the end, we know that that's true. So, because if we really knew this stuff was true, like I said several minutes ago, like I know that God doesn't see me as guilty. But if I actually knew this, I was listening to something one of David Hoffmeister's talks week or two ago, and he mentioned, he was talking about this. If we really did know this was true, our ego would not be in charge anymore. If we knew it was true, why would we start believing that it wasn't again? So that wouldn't actually happen. So it's like, I can say, I know that God doesn't see me as guilty. I know that's true. The Course tells me it's true. Like I know that in my core being that it's true, because that is who I am. But I don't actually live that way. I'm still alive, walking around, perceiving problems and challenges in my life. My life is pretty great, and I'm pretty happy, and I'm pretty at peace, but I do have challenges that come up. So do I really know that this is true? No. But my purpose here is to know it and to do whatever it takes to relinquish this as a belief. So right now we operate with the beliefs that we're not worthy, that we're not good people, we're not lovable, we're bad. And so it must be that we still just believe that we are good as well. We believe that, yeah, that could be the truth, but we don't really know it. We don't really know it. So, because it's all or nothing. If we knew all the truth, I don't think we could go back. Like what would cause us to go back into ego if we really knew? I don't think we can even comprehend that, because we humans don't have that experience. Like even when we're at peace and we're joyful and we're deep in the spiritual path, we still have challenges that look like something. They still have triggers that come up. We have to work through. So we're pretty close to the truth. Many people, many teachers of God, and monks and spiritual leaders, and people living alone and in the jungle practicing meditation, and however people get there on their path, like they are, I think, really, really, really close to the truth. But there's a sliver of belief still in there that's not that it's not fully true yet. So yeah, look on your brother with the willingness to see him as he is, and do not keep a part of him outside your willingness that he be healed. To heal is to make whole, and what is whole can have no missing parts that have been kept outside. Forgiveness rests on recognizing this and being glad there cannot be some forms of sickness which the miracle must lack the power to heal. Yeah. So what is whole can have no missing parts that have been kept outside. Yeah. So forgiveness rests on recognizing this and being glad there cannot be some forms of sickness which the miracle must lack the power to heal. Yeah, that's just so heartwarming. That's so beautiful to know that I could get there, because there's no missing part of me kept outside. So whatever fear I have, if I have a fear, if a part of me has a fear, if I have experienced a trauma, for example, and then a part of me has a fear about that. So say I have experienced say I experienced childhood trauma, and that turned into my adult life as a fear of intimacy. So I might not be aware of that fear, because that little part, that little child inside me that experienced that trauma, that abuse, got scared and then grew up to not trust intimacy with safe people, trusting people. And so then in relationships, that little child is like is operating the vehicle of the body of the adult and saying, you need to be scared of all of these relationships. You need to be scared of these people. And the adult, the grown up might be like, I don't have a problem here. I'm okay. I'm not scared. I don't even remember that trauma that happened. So I don't even know how to work through this. But there's a part of that person inside of them that is scared and is hurt, is terrified of being hurt again. So we have to look at those parts and love them. We have to reinterpret the meaning they made and say, it's okay, little one. It's okay, honey. You are safe because I'm here to take care of you. God is here to take care of us. God was always here to take care of us. We are safe. And we can do whatever we want, and we don't have to be limited by this fear and by this stuff that happened to us in the past. We can be free of that, and we can rewrite our story and make a different meaning that says, I am powerful, I am healed, and I am whole. I never actually was not whole. It's not that I became broken and then I had to pick up all the pieces and put the puzzle back together inside of me to heal from that pain and that trauma I experienced. I was always whole, but I thought that I had broke. I thought that I came apart. And so I'm whole and perfect and beautiful, yet through my lens, I'm actually seeing myself as pieces on the floor. So that's not the real me that I'm seeing. I'm perceiving something that's not me. I am perfect. I am healed and whole already. I am forgiven already. And I get to live and experience a life with infinite joy and love and peace for myself and from others and from God, because I'm open to believing that that is actually true about me, that something is true other than what I have experienced to be true. So am I willing to see this differently if I can't? You know, what if I can't access those fears? What if I don't know what they are? Oh, am I willing to see this situation differently if I'm experiencing distress or fear here, or anger or sadness? Am I willing? So if I'm willing to be open to it, what I've done is I've opened the door, I've reopened the channel that was once blocked from God's love entering. So God's love was already entering, but I had separated myself. I had perceived to separate myself from God's love. So God's love kept hitting me and hitting me and hitting me, but I couldn't feel it because I had put up a perceived invisible wall against it and decided that I was separate and that I deserved to suffer. And I don't deserve to suffer. So, am I willing to tear down that wall a little bit, even if I don't know how to do it or what that might look like or what I need to do to tear it down? Am I willing to just envision bringing down that wall a little bit? Am I willing to just envision that I actually have the power to do that, or my mighty companions in the divine realm can assist me with bringing down that wall? Because they know it's not there, so they don't care about that wall. It's not there. So I need to ask for help. I need to call for help to do this. I can't do this on my own with my ego being as powerful as I think it is. Yeah. Forgiveness rests on recognizing this. Yeah. And being glad there cannot be some forms of sickness which the miracle must lack the power to heal. Yeah. Nothing is an exception. God's Son is perfect, or he cannot be God's Son. Nor will you know him if you think he does not merit the escape from guilt in all its consequences and its forms. There is no way to think of him but this, if you would know the truth about yourself. Yeah. I thank you, Father, for your perfect Son, and in his glory will I see my own. Here's the joyful statement that there are no forms of evil that can overcome the will of God. The glad acknowledgement that guilt has not succeeded by your wish to make illusions real. And what is this except a simple statement of the truth? Yeah. That's it. There's no way to think of him but this, if you would know the truth about yourself. I'm going to read the last paragraph here. Look on your brother with this hope in you, and you will understand he could not make an error that could change the truth in him. It is not difficult to overlook mistakes that have been given no effects. But what you see as having power to make an idol of the Son of God, you will not pardon, for he has become to you a graven image and a sign of death. Is this your Savior? Is his Father wrong about his Son? Or have you been deceived in him who has been given you to heal for your salvation and deliverance? Yeah. God's Son is perfect, or he cannot be God's Son. Okay, so it's all or nothing. We are all God's children, or we are not. Nobody is excluded from this. Even the person in the world we perceive to be the worst of the worst, the baddest seed in the basket, they are also God's child. God's Son is perfect, or he cannot be God's Son. So I am God's child. I'm God's daughter who is perfect. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a child of God. So that's it. There's nothing else that could make that something different, something else. There's nothing else that could make something else other than that true. It's either that or not that. So which one do we want to believe? Which one do you want to believe today? Which one do you want to believe for the next minute of your life? If you really knew that was true for the next 60 seconds, how would you feel? If you knew you were perfect and guiltless, if you knew you were a good person, if you knew you were loving, that you deserved love, that you were worthy of love and good things and joy, how would you feel? I would feel I just had this like emptiness overtake me. It's like everything, all the other muck just like kind of, I felt it just like disappear. And I I feel this like really still, calm emptiness. So it's peace, but in a very like nothingness, emptiness kind of way. Some people describe that peace of God like that when they're in that state. So I feel like that's a miracle that just talking about this can put me in that state as I became quiet for a moment and tuned into that, and it was right there for me. So it was always there. Yeah, what does that feel like for you? So happy Interdependence Day. This was chapter 30, and it was section 6, the justification for forgiveness. So this was a good section. Thank you, Spirit, for guiding me to share that. And I hope everyone has a loving, peaceful, joyful day full of freedom and love and interconnectedness and freedom. I already said that. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kel Lash. I appreciate you. And yeah, interdependence is our independence.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely. You got it right on the nose there. So thank you, and you have a wonderful week as well. We'll see you next Monday.
Thanks, Lynn. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.